Welcome back, everyone. Before you watch this walkthrough, pause the video and try the problem yourself. Even a partial attempt will make the explanation much more useful. These videos are meant to support your problem-solving process, not replace it. Across many of my practice problems, I highlight different aspects of how to approach, break down, and reason through problems. So you'll get the most benefit by watching multiple walkthroughs rather than treating any single video as a template to With that, let's get started with our practice problem, creating our first class, in this case, a book. We will be writing a book class. Books have a title, an author, and a price, and then we should create 2 books and print out their details. With this information, we're now going to go ahead and start with a drawing just to make sure we have a really solid understanding of how we go about creating this book class. All right, so let's get started by just drawing a box that's going to kind of represent our book class blueprint. And as we said, we're going to have a title, an author, and a price. Now we should know that we need a string to represent our title. Similarly, a string to represent an author, since both of those are really phrases, right? They're going to be words. And then a double to represent the price, since it will be most likely in some kind of decimal format. That should be all we need in order to appropriately represent what the question is asking us. Then we need a book 1 and a book 2. Each of these will be able to house their own information within them. So while we have our blueprint, each of these are sort of representative of a box. We've got a title, an author, and a price, a title, an author, and a price, each with its own set of details. As we can see, I have my main method, or my main class, set up as I always do, along with pulling in my description here. So I have my create a book class, my title, my author, my price, and then sort of the create the 2 books and print out their details. Now, I probably should make a second file here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to create our public class book as a separate file, since we can only have one public class per file. So I'm going to go ahead and create it here. Now we've got our 2 different files here. I'm going to actually just pick up and move these instructions over so that we have everything we need in one place. Now we can see we have both of these files. They both live in the same folder, and that's going to be really important for us in just a minute when we compile our work. So let's get started here. We understand that we need our string title, our string author, and our double price. So let's go ahead and just write all of those out now. Here we are declaring each of those properties in our public class book. We're not giving them values here, we're just declaring them. And that's all there really is to it. Now, in theory, we'd put some other stuff in here to really round out this class and do it correctly, but that's out of scope for this video. That's something that we're going to address in my next video. This is really just our bare bones book class at this point in time. All right, so let's start with making our main method over in main. And I always really like to start with this system.out.println and then just some kind of message like an end of processing or a process completed successfully kind of message. And I do this so when I do my first compile and run, I can make sure that things are actually working correctly. Now, I think what would make sense here now is to actually split my screen so that we can see both files, both my main and my book class, at the same time. This also works in VS Code if you're using VS Code right now as an option, just so you know you can do that. And then this way we can just see what we're working with all at once. Now I'm going to go ahead and open up my terminal so that I can actually just compile my code to get started here. And I'm going to do that now, even though there's not a lot of code, just because then if I'm missing something small, I can catch it before my code gets way too complicated. So let's open up our terminal. We're going to go ahead and change our directory to where our code is. And we can see I've got both my main.java and my book.java file here. Now I can go ahead and type out each of the file names as my javac command would need to compile them each, or I can actually just write star.java and this is going to work as well. And check it out, we can actually see that there is an error. So it's a good thing I did my compilation now. I can see it's going to be in main.java on line 8, and I can see I'm missing that semicolon at the end of the line. So I'll go ahead, I'll add that semicolon, it tells me what line it's on. Good thing I checked it nice and early, and I can recompile, and now I can see that I am going to get the correct output, right? I got no compile time errors, so that's great. So now at this point, let's go ahead and actually do what we said we're going to do. We're going to create 2 books and print out their details. So first thing we're going to do is say we're going to create 2 books. We have that and, so let's separate these into 2 lines. Print out their details. Now, we could do all of this in main. However, these 2 sort of action items here tell us that we might be able to make some methods. Now, taking a look at this, understanding where we are right now in the course, what is going to make the most sense is actually going to be that we create 2 books here in main, but that printing out the details of a book does become a method, since the details we print about book 1 and the details that we print about book 2 should have the same formatting. However, they shouldn't have the same information within them, right? But they do have the same formatting of the data being printed out. So what we'll do is we'll make a method here, public static void print book details. And while it won't do anything just yet, we will take in a book and we will later on print out book details. There we go. We'll leave it just like that for a second. And we can say print, actually, and we'll just leave it like that. Now let's go ahead and declare our 2 books. We're going to have book 1, and book 2. These are declarations. They are not instantiations. They don't have any value yet. They don't even have a reference yet, actually, because they're just being declared as variables on the stack that we might need to use. As of right now, book 1 is actually equal to null. Now you could declare it explicitly like this, or you can just leave it like this, because when it comes to user-defined objects, we are going to sort of default to null here. So what we've done so far is we've declared 2 books, but we haven't initialized them. Now we can do it in the same step, or we can do it in a separate step. When I'm first teaching this, I often like to do it in 2 steps. Declaration versus book 1 equaling a new book. This is our instantiation, or our initialization. Now I'll show book 2 all in one line, just so you have both examples here in front of you. But really what you should be doing is picking one way or the other way, and then doing all of your declarations and instantiations within a program in that same way. Now we've sort of allocated some memory on the heap for our books. So we can go ahead and assign the values. We can do book1.title, and we can give it the title of the book. Let's work with one book that I actually really love, Brotopia. We can go ahead and give book 1 an author. And the author of this book is Emily Chang. And literally, if you haven't read this book, it's such a good one. Go ahead. And we can give it a price. Book1.price. And let's make this book $20.98. All right. This is known as dot notation, and we're going to not use it particularly frequently from our main. We're just doing it here because we can, and because we have this very, very basic, very, very empty looking book class. So this will allow us to say book 1's dot title. So book 1's title will be Brotopia, book 1's author will be Emily Chang, and book 1's price will be $20.98. Now we can go ahead and call book print book details, and we can pass in our book 1 reference. Now, what should our code do at this point in time? It's always good to pause and consider what you're expecting it to do prior to running it. Well, I expect it to call print book details. It should print out the words system.out.println book details, and then it should print process completed successfully. Let's go ahead and compile both our files. Now, we haven't actually changed our book.java file, so we don't really need to recompile it, but in just sort of habit, I always recompile all my files. It compiled successfully. We have no error messages. When we run our code, we run the file that has the main method in it. So we run our main class file, not our book class file. We'll go ahead and run it, and we'll see that we got the output we expected. Now, this isn't actually printing book details, of course. It's just printing the words book details. Let's notice what happens if we try to print our book object, book. I'll clear this out of the way, and I will just make this a little bit more center screen here, recompile and rerun. You'll notice we get garbage. Now, what we just got is the stack value of this book object. And what does the stack actually hold? It holds the reference. It holds the memory address of our book. So that's what printed out. And that's garbage for us, but it's very helpful for our computers. It's kind of like giving a friend your address. And then if you ask them what color is your house, they don't know. They just have the address. They'll say, well, I can go find it at your address, but I don't actually know what color it is right now. If you want to know what color, if they want to know what color your house is, they need to follow you to your house, and then they can tell you the color of your house. So let's do that here. Let's nicely set up our print statements just so that we get something that resembles well formatted. We'll do a title. We will do our author, and we will do our price. We could be using printf, but I'm just sort of quickly writing this out here instead. And in order to get our title, we need to go to that address and then look at the title, just like you'd have to go to your house address and look at the color of your house. Book.title. And to get the author, we need to do the same thing. Book.author, and over here for price, book.price. Fantastic. We can now recompile this, run it, and see that we're going to get all of the data out that we expect. Now, as we can see, these aren't actually lined up like all the way nicely, and we could maybe line them up a little bit better. We can do this by turning these into printfs and doing a little bit of formatting magic here. So let's do our printfs, and I'm actually gonna take this and go a little bit hard around my programming standards. So I'm going to create a final string author or title, I guess I should start with. And this one can be title like this. And I'm going to do this for author and for price. Author, price, and price. And I'm going to line these up, make my code look really nice and organized. Now all of these printfs are going to need some kind of formatter specifiers here. Now I can see that author has 3, 6, 7 characters, and I like to have a space here as well. So I'm going to give myself room for 8 characters and do a string. Actually, I guess I can do 7 characters and then a string, and then I can add a space, and then I can do, let me get rid of those. Put my colon there, then I can do my space, and then I can put my string for my title. And then what I can do is I can put the 2 different variables, title and book title, listed right there. And I can do that for all of these. Next, I do it for author with author, comma, book author. And finally, I can do it for my price. The only difference here on price is I probably do want to put a $sign here. And this needs to be a decimal, like a float value rather, because it's a double rather than a string. And we're going to do it to 2 decimal places, just as a reminder of how that's going to work. We're going to go ahead and try to compile this. We're going to run into no errors, but we will actually run into an error when we try to run it for 2 different reasons. One, I can see that I forgot, as I always do, my new line specifiers. And the other being that I forgot an argument here, right? We have our book argument right here, but I forgot to put the price header in there. So let's just add both those 2 things in, and our new line character here, our new line formatters, and now we've got them all in here. And if we want to be like really extra, we can make sure everything is nice and lined up. There we go. I love a nicely lined up piece of code. Okay, Java, run it. And there we go. We can see that all of these are nicely lined up now. If we wanted these to be right aligned instead with spaces on the other side, there are ways to do that as well with our formatting, but I think that this looks just fine. We're now all nicely aligned. We have a single book. Our original instructions did tell us that we needed to create 2 books. So let's go ahead. We have our book 2. We have a book 2 equals new book. What the heck is going to happen if we try to print the book details of book 2 without actually giving it any values? Well, title, author, and price are all different types of sort of built-in Java objects. Title is a string, author is a string, so each of these have default values. Price is a double, that has a default value. If we go ahead and just try to run this as it is, what will we find happen? There we go. We can see right there what's going on. We've got a title of null, an author of null, and a price of $0. Those are the default values for strings and doubles. We're going to talk more in a different video about why these strings came out as nulls instead of as empty strings, but I'll give you a quick hint. It has to do with the fact that there's a capital S right there, but we'll look at it in a different video. With that, we should probably actually give our book 2 some values. So here's our book 1 values. Let's go ahead and give book 2 a title. Let's go with Invisible Women, Data Bias. Another fantastic book if you're looking for any book recommendations in the field. We have our author, Caroline Criado Perez. What did I say? Criado, I didn't spell it right. There we go. And we, of course, need our, price for this book as well at, let's say, $18.22. If I want to really continue to be extra, I line up all my equal signs here too. This here is nonsense because I'm doing it in 2 different ways. So we'll go ahead and fix that just for the sake of beautifully lining everything up. Oh my gosh, so beautiful. Add my semicolon. I'll clear this out and I'll make sure I'm getting the correct output. There we go, our first book. Our second book, everything is beautifully lined up. Everything is organized as we'd expect. We've created our book class and we've created 2 objects, Brotopia book and the Invisible Women book in our program. Now, a reminder that you won't find my solution posted alongside this video. If you watch the walkthrough first without attempting the problem, you should stop now, close off my solution, and try to write it out yourself. Post-walkthrough practice still counts. If you have questions about this problem or suggestions for future practice problem videos, please be sure to leave them in the comments below and I will definitely take a look. Thanks everyone for joining me on this practice problem and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.